parts of the business community in Spokane. I think that, as sort of Tyson and I have talked about this, the idea is that we kind of have a set of these going forward. So this one's meant to be kind of covering a lot of different facets of business, but I hope to have kind of some ones focused towards like women in leadership and maybe healthcare or other kind of sub areas of focus going forward. And also, yeah, going back to the fall, we did one for college preparedness as well. So this is meant to be a little bit more towards kind of early career and like thinking about kind of how careers ebb and flow, and maybe a bit about kind of what it's going to look like in a post-COVID world for all of us. But yeah, with that, we'd love to kick it to the panelists. Maybe a quick minute or so intro, background. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, I knew you were going to do that. Hi everyone, I'm Hailey Flint. I graduated from St. George's in 2013, and then I graduated from the University of Puget Sound with a degree in business and leadership and a minor in vocal performance in 2017. I forgot there for a second. And I work at a company called Cerium Networks here in Spokane. It is a telecommunications and technology reselling company. I primarily work in our contact center practice, so I work with clients mostly in the healthcare and finance industries. I'm a salesperson, and then I also consult with them on designing their contact center experiences. So if any of you have ever called in to get customer service from, let's say, maybe a bank, and you hear press 1 for paying my bill or press 2 for checking my balance, I design those types of systems. And right now we're mostly focused on omni-channel technologies, which would be things like chatting, using social media to provide customer service and those sorts of things. So that's just a little bit about me.
My name is Gerhard Newhams. I graduated from St. George's in 2010 and then went to Whitworth University just down the road and studied accounting and economics there. And then after I graduated, I ended up starting work here in town at a public accounting firm called Moss Adams. So I'm a CPA at Moss Adams right now. I had a little bit of an interesting path. I interned there on the audit side and spent kind of my first 2 years splitting time between audit and tax. And then after 2 years of kind of seeing both sides, decided that the tax route in the world of public accounting is how I was going to kind of start developing my career. So for the last 5 years or so, I've been focused solely on the tax side of things. I work with a lot of contractors in the Northwest, so Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Washington, some big general contractors you've probably heard of, some small subs that you probably haven't heard of that do really well as well. And then some of the other fun stuff that I get to do with work is I do a lot of real estate work as well. So real estate work. So I work with large funds, some private investors, kind of a little bit of a mix there. So that's a little bit about me. So kind of a busy time of year right now for me.
Andy Hoye, class of 65, representing a different generation, I guess. I think I see 4 students in my audience, so more parents. I think I'll address most of my comments to the parents. Students, you got to listen too. I'm going to leap way ahead. Not going to march through the first 30 years. I'm currently a commercial real estate appraiser. I appraise farms, vineyards, and wineries. I work kind of part-time. I stopped work a few years ago, got bored, went back, had my license. Fascinating, interesting work. Valuing properties. Gee, what's that worth? Well, what do they pay for that kind of thing? But I'll take questions later. I have some thoughts about finding a career though, so kids, listen a little bit and we'll get back to that.
Thanks, Andy. And hi, my name is Tyson Bostrom. I graduated here in 2011. Went to Carroll College out in Montana, did a biology degree there. Originally trajectory was going to go into medicine, switched that up, got my MPH from Northeastern University in Boston.
So what is that?
I'm sorry, Master's of Public Health.
Okay.
And then after that went and got my Master's of Health Administration from the University of Washington. So I'm currently a senior consultant for a management consulting firm called Guidehouse. And I get to work with physicians as well as hospital administrators, whether that's CEO, CFO, working on their broad enterprise strategy, whether that's looking at where they should open up a new hospital, a new clinic, a new primary care office, as well as doing kind of other different things in healthcare, including like how can we improve your U.S. News and World Report scores, as well as kind of just looking at more of the operational portions as well of healthcare, whether that's compensation, productivity, staffing ratios, and such.
All right, so I guess to kick off questions, when you think about kind of the path that you've landed on so far, is there a moment or two when you said, you know, this is kind of like where I want to start heading? Gerhard, curious, for example, if, you know, was it an accounting class at Whitworth, or, you know, Hailey, was it something at UPS that you picked up on? I think that a challenge that we face often is kind of, you know, finding a natural on-road to these careers, and so curious kind of how you thought about that step and what is taking you this direction.
You can start. I can start.
Yeah.
So I'll back up a little bit. I studied chemistry for about 2 years as well at the beginning of my time in my undergrad, and kind of came to the realization one day in a lab that I did not like going to lab. And so I figured, how am I going to do this the rest of my life? I don't like doing lab. So I had taken some business classes, and ultimately for me it was just what I liked was the number side of things, and then getting to interact with people. And as weird as it sounds, in accounting you get to do a lot of that. You get to understand people's businesses, kind of guide them through some of the more complicated decisions that they have to make. I mean, sometimes it's a lot of money that these people are spending on projects, or it's a family-owned business where they're contractors and they're trying to pass money on to their kids, or how they can transition that. So for me, it was, how am I going to get to interact with people and intertwine business into that. And so accounting was kind of just the language of how the business runs, and then I also got to work with a lot of business owners that way. So I think that piece, and then to kind of dovetail to that, but working with my advisor was a key for me at my kind of when I was taking some time to switch and really looking at what classes have I liked, what have I been good at, and what would I want to do outside of chemistry. So you know, at Whitworth, yeah. So I mean, everybody, you show up your first day of undergrad and everybody says, I'm going to go to med school, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And for me, at least, that was not the case. I mean, I thought I was doing one thing, and I think just using the resources that you have out there is the biggest thing. So use your advisors, and don't be afraid to pivot.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of piggyback off of that. I thought I was going to be an opera singer, so I did a full 360. I was in a business program at school, and what I really loved was this one class. It was a consulting class, and I was able to go out and actually work with a young business who was trying to develop and build out their portfolio and their practice, and it was myself and a cohort of a couple other people who were working with this company, and just that experience of being able to actually help this client and work with them directly really kind of opened my mind up to, hey, maybe this could be a viable option for me. And so, you know, kind of to your point, just advice for things that you can do while you're in school. It's okay if you change your mind while you're in school. You don't have to go in and stick to it. If you really don't like something, that's okay. My advice would be, there's 3 things. 1, go to office hours. That's my #1 advice to everyone who's in college. Go to your office hours, get to know your professors. They're really interesting people, and kind of on that same note, if they've published any studies or written any books, I would encourage you to read your professor's material outside of what's in your class, because it's pretty inspiring, and you can really learn a lot from what they've done beyond their teaching career. I found a lot of value in that. And then my 3rd piece of advice would be to take a class outside of your major. If there's something that sounds interesting to you, take a chance on it if it fits into your schedule, and take that class, because it could widen your horizon. So for example, my senior year of college, I took a, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like the economy of wine and the wine industry, and it sounded interesting to me, so I took the class, and I had to do like a pitch on a wine brand. And that was the start to what I do all day, every day now, is that those pitching skills I learned there have now transferred into my career today, and it was just a very interesting class. So those are my 3 pieces of advice for college. Is go to office hours, read your professor's material, and try a class outside of your major.
Andy and Tyson, how about you guys?
My grandfather opened his medical practice in Spokane in 1905. My mother thought that was really cool and I should be a doctor. Graduated valedictorian from St. George's, went directly to Harvard to be a doctor. But I discovered theater and got stuck in my biology major, wrote a play that was produced at Harvard, went on and got a master's degree in English literature at the University of Denver, and then looked for work. Well, let's see, that was 1971, and the only jobs that were available were teaching at junior college in Florida. So I had really enjoyed my time studying literature at graduate school, and I don't want to occupy the rest of you people for the next 15 minutes telling you the wandering path that I took from a variety of careers. But I echo what these people have said. Sniff around, and look inside. My mom wanted me to be a doctor, and it didn't work for me. I wanted to do something else. So parents, be sure that you ask your children, what do you really want to do? Anything is okay. We just want you to be happy. And make sure you follow through with that nice phrase. And my parents sort of did that finally.
It's kind of hard to follow up on that one. But my whole story was really just a giant pivot, going from wanting to do medical school, did my master's of public health, realized about halfway through that. That's when I really actually realized I didn't want to go to medical school. I had several friends in medical school. I looked at how their life trajectories were going, and I definitely realized that was just not the route I wanted to go. But having a biology degree, there's not a whole lot to do with that degree besides become a scientist, go into academia, or become a doctor, a physician, some sort of healthcare related field. So my pivot really was, well, I still want to stay in healthcare. That's really what my entire career, or at least all my education, was surrounded by. So I went back, had to go get kind of the business acumen around that. So that's how I ended up at the University of Washington for my health administration degree. And to be honest, in that entire program for 2 years, my whole kind of idea of what I wanted to do was bouncing around. You take one class in strategy and think, oh, that's really cool. You do another class in finance, oh, that's really cool. Some things around my clinical improvedness, that was another thing. For consulting, for me, it allowed me to bounce around all those different areas, as well as jump around from client to client. Usually we have engagements that are anywhere between 4 to 9 months, so it never got dry at that point. And for me, like, staying in operations would have been a lot of fun for a few years, but it just allowed me to continue to pivot, even though I'm still within a career kind of framework. So.
Awesome. So the next question, this is maybe a bit introspective, but I think that, so there's a famous notion from like Warren Buffett, which is you should build a moat around whatever you do, and you should have some way of defending it where you're uniquely qualified to do it. So I'm curious if you guys think that there's a skill or a set of skills that you've developed in your work that's kind of uniquely you. It's Tyson's approach to consulting, it's Andy's approach to commercial real estate appraisal. Like, is there something, what's you about what you do?
I can start. I tell stories all day long. So when I'm working with clients, we're talking about technology, but we're not talking about a specific type of technology. We're talking about issues that they have in their day-to-day role. So I work with a healthcare company, and we talk about their pain points in the contact center, right? Are they receiving too many calls because of COVID? Are they having staffing issues? What are the issues? And then we tell stories about how we can try and solve those issues. So I would say that for me, it's being able to create sales pitches that aren't really pitches, that are more stories and about how we can address the client's issues and the line of business issues versus really just going in hot with a technology and trying to push it down their throats. It's about best serving their needs so that they can continue to provide high levels of patient care or improve patient care, access to care, or customer service.
And I think to go off that as well, I mean, you can go to school all day long and learn all the technical skills. But something that a lot of universities are changing and trying to teach, if you really can, is those interpersonal skills. How can you connect with people? How can you relate to them? How can you listen to them? And then take those things that they're telling you and then kind of create a solution around that. So being a great listener is one of the things, and honestly being able to communicate with others is huge, at least in my line of business, and it sounds like in yours.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'd say on that too is just like a good exercise that I go through if I'm learning a new technology, because in technology there's changes every single day. It's never the same thing, which is part of why I love it, but it can be really challenging, right? So an exercise that I would recommend if you're interested in sales of any variety is to go through and learn a little bit about whatever you want to sell. And then go from there and create your own little pitch or your own little presentation and practice doing that. Whether that's with your peers or your parents, give them a sales pitch and see if you can feel comfortable doing that. And that will help you in many ways, not just in sales, but just in life as well.
Hailey, quick question on that.
Yeah.
So when you think about like getting smart on a new technology,
Yeah.
how do you have kind of an approach for that? Do you read Google alerts, or curious kind of how you sort of delve into something like that?
So for the technologies that I work with primarily, they have really rich databases of information available online. So one of the technologies that we sell is Genesis. It's a contact center technology solution, and they have a really great database of information that's available. So I utilize that, and then Google, YouTube, get comfortable with YouTube. There's some good information on there. There's some bad information. And then certifications. They're the bane of my existence, but it's unnecessary stuff.
So similar vein, I don't know if you guys have thought about this. I think one of the things I wish I knew kind of from high school was like, get really good at PowerPoint. I feel like PowerPoint's something that, I mean, we talk about this even with the board, right? It's like, oh, we need to turn this latest deck. Are there skills like that you guys would recommend kind of for students or even parents to double down on now?
Be able to touch type 80 words a minute. And if you can't do that now, be sure you can by the time you graduate from high school. Biggest skill ever. And second, debate. Get involved in debate. You're going to be dealing with people. You're going to be trying to influence people occasionally, maybe in an interview. Yeah, those are useful.
Any others?
Excel. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the one-word answer, but I tell it to all the new staff when they come in, if you're good at Excel, I will get you work, because data sets are getting bigger and bigger, and there's even, at least in my world, Excel's big, but there's even more powerful platforms out there, but that's kind of the building block right now for everything that I do. So if I see somebody who's good at Excel and I want them doing my work, I make sure it happens, because it's
Access.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the database tool?
Yeah.
It kind of got folded into Excel. Very interesting. I used to teach both of them at SEC and at Boeing, and now it's just Excel. So,
So there's Excel, and then now it's like Power BI is the
Yeah.
So, and I'm not self-admittedly not good at Power BI, which I should be, but I'm looking for somebody who's good at Power BI that can do it for me.
Learn how to write a professional email
Oh,
that is
yeah.
short, to the point. Do not apologize, but be concise and clear. Learn how to write a business email, and maybe try Toastmasters. I would say any sort of speaking abilities you can learn are going to help you no matter what industry you're in. And PowerPoint, keep the words that are on your PowerPoint to a minimum. It should be a tool. It should not be the main focus. And try and make them engaging. If you're going to give a presentation to someone, I don't want to look at a boring presentation, and I'm sure you don't either, so try and make it fun.
Don't recreate the wheel with PowerPoint either. There's so many different templates you can build in, whether that's smart designer and
Yeah.
everything. It makes life so much easier, and it gives you a whole theme you can run off of. And then Excel, learn Excel.
Yeah.
Excel's, I look at an Excel spreadsheet a lot.
we've been talking about people skills, and those are really important, but technical skills are important too. So if anybody, particularly a student, who thinks, I like science, I like the lab, do some research. Find a research internship somewhere. Get your foot in that door. Make sure that you still like it, even if it's really hard to have to learn integral calculus at 11 p.m. just to solve a problem, but you kind of like that. So the STEM people, do the research, and also people skills. You're going to have to sell something at some point. Maybe it's a research project you put 9 months in on, So pick up those people skills too, but don't shrink from the research, the hard research.
So just to follow up on some of the skills, so computer science, have you all taken a computer science course, or has that applied to anything that you're doing at this point, if you have or have not?
They had like a business, kind of computer science for business, and it was Excel basically. I mean, it was just learning Excel formulas. So yes, in school I did. And that kind of helped, at least, it's hard to, so much of it is, my job especially, like it does not necessarily translate what I did in school to what I do on a daily basis, but I had the building blocks there to kind of piece it together. I think that's kind of most careers to a certain extent. But yeah, that was one of the best classes I took.
And I think a lot of firms are moving towards, whether you're in accounting, you're in consulting, you're in actuarial, you usually have a whole set of individuals who are data scientists. So like for me, I know enough to be dangerous in a lot of different areas, but when it comes down to like having to actually do the programming, like if I'm running something off SQL, I can't do SQL to save my life. But there's usually support teams who really function in that. They get the data to a point where you can kind of manipulate a lot more in Excel, and then you can run with it.
I have a master's degree in computer science, so I could get a real job. This is some time ago. But understanding how high-level languages work and pseudocode and what that is. Pseudocode, look that up. That's a good one because you kind of have basic commands. So this is what a program is. You don't have to be able to do it, but you should understand.
Thanks.
So I think this is a pretty natural segue. I think we all face kind of shortages of time, I think in high school and college. What is like an experience or two that like looking back you really would have doubled down on? Maybe it's an internship, maybe it's picking up computer science. Is there something that you wish, it's partly like hindsight's 20/20, but also looking forward for these guys, like what can you do to like really propel yourself if you have the time to pick up something like that?
Sure. I can start. I'm going to talk a little bit about mentorship because that has been extremely valuable in my career, both being mentored by people and being a mentor myself to other people. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone who is in a career or industry that you are interested in learning more about, and offering to take them to coffee, pick their brain, ask them about what internships they did, what experiences they had that helped them get to where they are at. Ask them about their work-life balance. What does their day-to-day job look like? I think, to your point earlier, what you learn in school does not translate into what your day-to-day will actually end up looking like. So I think it's important to learn a little bit about what your day-to-day would look like in a certain career. And if someone says that they don't have the space to be a mentor to you, ask them if they know someone who would be. Chances are they have someone that would be able to help you out. So never be afraid to ask for someone to be your mentor if you're interested in what they're doing. The worst thing they can say is no, and they'll help you find someone else who can fill that gap as well.
And something to tie on to that as well is that by going to St. George's, you're already connected with a bunch of different individuals, whether it's in business, it's in STEM, it's in the liberal arts area. Be willing to ask the administration to see if they know anyone, an alum, who would be willing to talk to you, and I'm sure they will definitely try and connect you guys up with someone who'd be willing to talk to you.
Vocational aptitude tests are worthwhile. Take a couple. See what the rest of the world of sociology thinks you should do. It might not be right for you, but that's what these people kind of think. That's something to think about.
That's great. I guess, so kind of similar, in the vein of internships, I'm curious if anyone had this experience of, maybe you come back from college, you want to create an internship for yourself. If you can apply for one, maybe you find one that you can apply for. Are there ways of, kind of Hailey, to your point with like the mentoring angle, like how do you show a level of interest that can kind of engage people and create those opportunities for yourself? If that makes sense.
I can start. When I was taking accounting classes, I basically talked to my career advisor and said, what's the best way to get in front of these firms and kind of get shots on goal, basically. I mean, that's kind of that was my mindset, is get out and meet as many people as you can, and just pick their brain and figure out what their day-to-day life is like. And so one, it benefits you, but also when you get to a potential interview, you're sitting across from somebody that you probably already know to a certain extent and have already built a little bit of a relationship with. And so for me, that made me feel more relaxed in those interviews. And I think it just gives you a leg up because people want to work with people that they know and they like, and that's just kind of a fact. And so getting out in front of people, I think, is the biggest piece for that's kind of my recommendation at least. So.
I agree. Just find a mentor, and chances are that they will be willing to vouch for you. If it's not their company, then again, with someone else who may have an internship that's a good fit. And then my other piece of advice on that would be to not take an unpaid internship because you are contributing and your work is of value, so you should not take an unpaid internship. Would just be my advice.
We had full employment before COVID, we still have full employment. You should be able to ask for $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And I think before we open up for questions, just one final question on, when you think about your field that you're in now, are there suggestions you have for how someone that's interested in that might get into your chosen field?
If you're interested in technology, I would recommend starting to get some base level certifications. So if you're interested in going down a very technical path, CompTIA is a great place to start. Having that base knowledge, whether you're a technical person or a salesperson, is really helpful in the tech industry. And then I would say just getting out there and building relationships. You don't need to build one now, but when you're in college, start a LinkedIn page and start making connections with people and start building those relationships early on. And then by the time that you're ready to start looking for an internship or a job, chances are you will already be connected with someone who can help point you in the right direction.
I am, as I mentioned, a commercial real estate appraiser. Appraisers use researchers, and that's the entry point to that particular profession. Gee, the subject parcel is that building downtown. Did anything like that sell recently? So you have to dig around and find out, and you present that to the appraiser as a researcher. And that's how I got started, actually. And it was fascinating. I got a very good sense of the profession just from doing the research. Of course, it didn't pay very much, but it paid enough for me to decide, yeah, I can still do this.
In accounting, I would say just, there's a handful of firms in town, but what I always did is go on the firm's website and just kind of read what their mission statement is, kind of figure out what their values are, because they are different. You can go work in a Big Four firm, which is, oftentimes a little bit different than what I do. I'm at more of like a mid-sized regional firm. And it kind of is ultimately up to you. It's what do you think you're going to fit in more? And I think to kind of go back to what I was talking about, but it kind of sets you up to differentiate yourself from your fellow people who are interviewing for those positions, because you know more about the firm potentially than they do. So, learn about the firms and try to get out in front of it.
Tyson, last word?
Yeah, so very similar with consulting firms. Go onto their websites, learn a little bit more about maybe what that firm specializes in. Some of them are kind of every industry, but looking more kind of at the high school level, if there's any opportunities where you can get into like business case competitions, that's a great way. Honestly, even just doing random internships within businesses, or if you're just helping out on small little projects, it's a great way to get your feet wet, one, into project management, as well as to really understand kind of different types of businesses and what those businesses are doing. Because at the end of the day, all of our industries kind of have that same foundation of business. And then once you get into college, definitely, again, look at the internships within management consulting firms, as well as kind of there's a lot kind of more robust case competitions at the national level. Some of them are, you get to prepare for a month long. They give you a business case, you prepare it with a team or something. Others are, you show up that day, they give you a case at hand, and you dive into it. You get to look at all the different types of data. They give you just enough information to be dangerous, and then you come up with some sort of business solution, whether that's a product, whether it's a service, or just kind of an overall plan.
love to open it up for questions if anyone in the audience has some. If not, I have more.
Well, I've got a question, just going back to the computer science question. I just want to make sure, so the recommendation was kind of just understand some basics about what is a computer, or, you know, some of the more popular forms of programming, but not that you're going to specialize and have to go out and do programming.
Yeah, that's,
Big picture, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to know what a PC is, and you have, basically, that's your computer science ed right now. All kids can run a laptop, right? So
I think it's helpful to understand how a program works, don't you? I mean, you guys have all probably written some code, you know, very basic level of code, and you could probably learn that in 2 days online if you decide, all right, I want to understand how to program in a very fundamental way. And then you can understand, because these loops work, for, next, loop, if, then, some of the basic commands, pseudocode. Look up pseudocode, and you'll get a sense for what a program is. And they all kind of use the same sort of structures. Data structures are important. Just so when a programmer starts babbling away, you say, wait a minute, I don't know a lot about it, but I do understand this. And so you have some credibility in the conversation, not just eyes glazed over.
I'm not sure if we still have elements of engineering as a class here, but I know when I was in upper school, we got kind of a sneak preview of that, and that's a good way of getting a sense too for, you know, is this something I might want to do? I will say anecdotally that some of the best jobs of my friends from college were all like Google, Facebook engineers that are crushing all the Wall Street people. So if it's all about money, like, that's not a bad way to go. So that's maybe worth thinking about too. Yeah.
It is, and I think the five of us, pardon me, represent for-profit industries. There are a lot of nonprofits that are worth looking into as well, and they have, you know, different kinds of objectives. Profit is not, you know, the highest goal for them, but those social service jobs are useful. No, they're not going to compete with the Google engineers, but they might be the right thing for you. So don't rule that out. I mean, we're all for-profit people, but you don't forget that whole sector, nonprofit, public service area, real important.
So just along that line, can we pick on the other three alumni to just give their brief introduction and their path, maybe what they started out in, what they ended up doing?
Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Redlands down in California. I'm a 2014 grad as well. And I started out as a bio major as well, so I was going to do the med school route, and graduated with a bio degree. And then basically through reaching out to people or Chris Johnson, who's another St. George's grad, I got an internship at Gonzaga, just working in their ticket office, and really liked working in the sports industry. So ended up going to the same master's program he had gone to, which was at the University of Washington, and started working in college athletics, predominantly in like ticketing and marketing, and then eventually switched over to being an account manager for a ticketing company, so working more with individual clients in smaller schools. But yeah, I mean, I think everything they said, from, you know, just reaching out to random people. I had an internship in college with a chiropractor, the river keeper, you know, in a ticket office, all just through these, you know, random reaching out, sending an email, so.
And you had a cool roommate.
Yeah. Lived with Tyson for a year.
I'm Caroline Hammett. When I was at St. George's, I just got married last year, so my last name is now Calder. I was in class of 2016, and I went to Pepperdine University down in California. I graduated in 2020, double majored in economics and French and minored in music, and graduated during the pandemic in a world of unknowns, moved back up to Spokane, and I started an internship because I didn't know if I'd be in Spokane or if I'm living here now, but I didn't know if I would be here for like 5 months or years. And so I got an internship at Inland Empire Paper Company because I had a family connection there, and I had been interested in the sustainability world, and I wanted to see how a business lives through that, and I got to learn so much through that internship. Had nothing to do with my major, but I was there helping them with some business development as they were changing some of their strategy. Traditionally a newsprint manufacturer, they're moving into the packaging world, and it's just fascinating. Learning about how recycled content is hard to come by because it's very competitive, and how you can reuse all these different byproducts of manufacturing and to reintroduce them into the earth through all these different things. And it was just really interesting to see how you can manage a company in manufacturing with the world's best interests at heart. And so that was really fascinating. That was about 8 months, and I kind of knew that I didn't really see myself working in manufacturing long term, or at least I didn't see myself having enough to give back at this time for it to make sense. And so I started reaching out to some people, and a friend who I think actually did go to St. George's briefly put me in contact with her boss at Washington Trust Bank, which is where I am now. And so I've been working in wealth management there, getting to use my econ degree a little bit. But it's just been really great. I highly recommend working for a company you respect, and that's how I felt about Washington Trust. I have great leadership in our department. Our director is wonderful, really communicative, really supportive, good team. And one thing that I was thinking about is like tips about being in an office and working with a team in my generation, because phones and online messaging kind of took over phone calling when I was younger, and so I wasn't very comfortable with that. Get comfortable picking up the phone and calling someone. It's such a good point. Because it's hard. It's like hard to do that. Like in the same way, I would say I would really practice sending a professional email. Practice calling someone and talking to them professionally, because it can be really nerve-wracking if you're not used to it, especially once you're in that professional setting. You're representing a company, you have clients, and yeah, that's a good skill. So,
And kids today don't do that.
no, not at all. I avoided it as much as possible.
So Caroline, you're going to lead the phone-a-thon for us?
That was a yes. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Well, I think we can probably wrap up and maybe talk informally just with you all. But really thank you to the panelists and also the audience for coming tonight. We want this to be just the first of many events like this to really help foster a tight-knit community, both for when folks are here as upper schoolers and middle schoolers, but also as alumni as well. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming.
Yeah. And if there's any other questions, feel free. Folks are going to be around for a little bit, so we still have a few more pieces of pizza over here as well. So let us know, and thank you for coming, and thank you to our panelists and all of the alumni that are here tonight for giving back, being here. Thank you.